So I struggled with binge eating for about 9 years, um, from memory anyway. And what I want to do in this video is really walk through what my journey, my experience was like, and tell you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and walk you through kind of how I did that essentially, um, or how I got the help that I needed. So, look, it really started with a bit of context, or let me start with a bit of context, whereby I was a big kid. My mum was a feeder, as in, she just would give me food when I wanted to, and that's no problem of her own. But I just could never really process like feelings of fullness. Like I always just wanted to eat. I got a lot of dopamine from eating, and growing up, it was always a problem for me. I always hated the way I looked. I remember like specific moments, like as early as like 10 years old, where I would wear a robe, like a towel. I'd get out of the shower, and you know how a girl will like wear their robe really high, like a towel really high to cover their breasts. I would do the same because I was so embarrassed about my man boobs, essentially. And I remember we went on like a kids camp one day, and I did it, and some girl was like, "Why are you wearing your towel like me?" Um, and yeah, that was something that's probably to always be in my brain as a result. But fast forward to kind of, I don't know, maybe I was like 16, 15, 16 years old. I started going to the gym, and I essentially tried every single method possible to lose weight, in the most unhealthy way. I restricted my foods, I would count calories, I would um, only go for carbs, I would fast. And what it led to is like these very weird cycles of kind of really good for a few days or even a few weeks at times, and then boom, I just put all the weight back on after a few days or a week. Um, and at the time, I didn't realize what was going on, but now I realize that that was binge eating essentially. Um, and what would happen is that process continued and continued and actually got really bad to the point where, I started seeing someone for it, and I was literally classed as someone that had binge eating disorder, um, because of how frequent the binges were and how severe it got to at that particular point in time. Um, and look, in this video, I kind of want to walk you through that journey, ultimately, highlighting some really important things for me. Um, and what was really impactful was like, and if there's one thing I want you to take away from today is like, my first ever session with my binge eating counselor, she said to me, "George, the number one reason an eating disorder happens is because someone goes on a diet. And all we need to be doing is changing the way we see whatever our goal is, whether this is weight loss, building some muscle. Particularly, it's common with weight loss, right? Oh, I need to lose weight, I'm going to go on a diet." And it's like, well, let's just not use this vocabulary. Let's maybe adjust how we see our nutritional approach, for example. And it's little elements like that that, in my opinion, seem very small but actually have a very big impact. So that's a bit of a side note, but let me get back to my story, my selfish story. So, look, it probably continued for many years, this kind of like binge restrict cycle. I was frequently training in the gym. I was seeing, quite a bit of success, like a lot of compliments were flying my way. I'd gone from someone that was, really out of shape, really overweight. Like I was borderline obese, I would say at the time, to, someone that was like getting compliments from girls, and like my friends were like, "Hey, what are you doing with yourself?" And almost like positive reinforcement to the negative behaviors I was doing. And um, all the while, like I was doing it in the most unhealthy way, whereby I would severely restrict my calories, I'd over exercise in the gym, and that was the result of maybe a binge a few days prior. And it led to me kind of getting to this weird position where I was like kind of very unhappy in my body, very unhappy with how I looked, all the time, and weirdly like getting kind of positive reinforcement on that. It was a really, really strange time, and that led on for years. Like, I didn't know I had a problem at this time. I just knew that I would just mess up on my diet, and I'd call it a willpower problem. Um, and, you know, this would extend to not just like, me having a level of frustration in that, but severe levels of guilt. Like, I would literally go downstairs, raid the snack cupboard, the fridge, and blame it on my brothers, or act like I had no idea who did it because there was so much guilt attached to this. Um, and I had a girlfriend at the time as well, right? And I would go to her house and I'd kind of probably wouldn't have crazy binges because I was just like with her, and binging is something that you almost do in silo because it's very guilt heavy, and I would like do the exact same there. Like, I'd kind of raid the snack cupboard at times, and no one ever like caught up on it. Like, no one said anything because they just probably blamed each other. But like, I was like, I know what I'm doing here, and it was just awful. And this continued and continued and continued, all throughout uni, all throughout um, my time there as well. And it got to its worst really over the last few years, whereby I finished up at uni and I moved to London. And I remember there being so in control of, what I ate, and having the funds available to just go, I'm gonna order 50 quid worth of food. Like, I don't mind. Like, I have money now. I was doing well at work, and the frequency, therefore, of the binges was ridiculous. And what was really interesting was I was so conscious of my flatmates and friends finding out at the time that I would like literally do this at like 1 a.m., for example, and yeah, like be consuming tubs of ice cream downstairs when it's pitch black and everyone's asleep, and I've got work in 4 hours. And just stopping on this, I really want to comment. How do you feel I felt when I would go to work the next morning or 5 hours later after consuming 4,000 calories? It was awful. It was disgusting. I felt horrible in my mind. I hated myself. I was not productive at work, because I was either thinking about binging again, because you kind of get stuck in this cycle of like, I've binged once, I'm going to do it again. That felt amazing. Or you're incredibly frustrated with what you do and you don't want to eat another calorie for the next 3 days. And I kid you not, these were thoughts that went in my head every single day continuously for 9 years. And just the mental attacks of that in comparison to what I have now in my relationship with food, I just can't believe I was able to live a functioning life. I didn't live a functioning life, to be honest, but keep up with life, like multiple times I would decline party invites or going out with my friends because I'd binged the night before and I felt like my face looked fat, because it does. Like, binging, what it does is it because there's so much sodium, it almost puffs up your face and your skin. And that was the reason why, I mean, I'm fast forwarding a bit here, but I came home for Christmas this year. I now live in Australia. I came home for Christmas 6 months ago, and I had a binge. And I hadn't seen any of my UK friends for like a good year, and there was this big New Year's party, and I just had like 4 days straight of binging and just isolated myself. I didn't reply to any text messages. I stayed in bed. My family were like, my mum was like, "What's going on with you? Like, you should be really happy to be home." And I just couldn't explain it. But where it got better was when I started talking about it. And I'll rewind back to my time at uni, in London, sorry, whereby I sat down with a guy called Rory. Actually, before this, I called my sister. My sister was the first one that really knew that I had a problem, like that I disclosed that problem to. man, that took me like a lot of effort. I remember calling her and being like, she didn't answer the first time, and I was like, "Hey, don't worry, I didn't mean to call you." Da da da. And then I called her back, and it was like, "Hey, I've really got a bit of a problem here. Can you help me out? Can you just listen to me?" And getting that off my chest was the first step. And then a few weeks later, I sat down with my closest flatmate, Rory, and I told him, and he just listened, and that's really all I needed at that time. But it didn't get worse, and if anything, it didn't get better, and if anything, it got worse to the point where when I moved to Australia, not only did I, same position as London, I had the funds available to just order delivery whenever I wanted, but I knew no one here, and for me, a risk factor of binging is, feeling alone, feeling bored, feeling stressed, tired, like a lot of risk factors, a lot of symptoms. And my binges were so frequent, so frequent, like the most they've ever been, multiple times a week, to the point where I was working a job and I didn't turn up for 2 weeks straight, right? Because of just being in bed all day, every day, and just binging and just I counted up, I spent $1,000 on food in 2 weeks, just ordering delivery every single day, and I probably put on, I don't know, 10 kilos. I have no idea how much, and yeah, it was a disgustingly horrible process, but it kind of that kind of hit of rock bottom was why I am where I am now, in my opinion. And sometimes, unfortunately, you've got to go really, really, really down before you can go back up. And that was the point in time where I reached out to someone. And I remember I was in the sauna at the gym, and I overheard these two girls talking, and I think one of them was a nutritionist or a counselor, um, for eating disorders. And I went up to them at the end. We walked out at the same time from the sauna. I was very glad. I kind of like waited for them almost, because I was like, I need to ask this girl a question. And I used my brother as a disguise. It was like, hey, my little brother has problems with eating. Do you happen to know of, like, can he work with you? I heard you talking about it. And she was like, oh, really? And she kind of gave me this look of like, I don't believe you. Like, I don't think your brother has a problem. I think you have it was really, I just knew she knew. And maybe she didn't, but she directed me to an eating disorder kind of charity. And she said, well, hey, they're really, just get in touch with them. I was like, okay, awesome. So I did, and I spoke to them a bit about my symptoms, and they said, well, hey, George, the really awesome thing is that with your level of severity of symptoms, like the Victorian government, where I am in Australia, they'll give you 5 free sessions. Like, you don't even have to pay for this. And I was like, what? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I thought I'd be forking out $200-300 a session. And I had my first session, and it was really just her listening to me. And then I had my second session 2 weeks later, and I kid you not, in that in between point, I binged maybe once or twice. But after that second session, I felt like I was cured. Like, I don't know, I know why, but I just felt like I'm never going to binge again. And I was very open with my one of my close housemates, Kira, about me doing this. She struggles a bit with food in different relations as well. And we just openly spoke about it one day. And she was really supportive of it. And I said to her that one day, I was like, I'm never binging again. Like, not that I, like, do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm a smoker saying I'm never going to smoke a cigarette again. It's just like, I knew in myself that I wouldn't binge again. And look, I'm not lying when I say I haven't ever binged since that. I've had like periods where I've probably like overeaten when I shouldn't have, or I've snacked a bit too much when I shouldn't have. But I've never ever sat on a sofa and indulged for 6,000 calories worth of food in a sitting since that period 6 months ago. And yeah, I stuck on for my 5 sessions. We got to the point where I felt like within the first 3 to 4 sessions, I said to her, I was like, look, I'm totally chill, like I'm fine, and we kind of um, then steered the conversation more towards like the body as a project, and like, hey, well, George, you're so obsessed about how you look, and it should just be all about how you feel and how your body moves, and is it healthy, and do you love yourself? And I've really loved those conversations as well, because she was right. All I was cared about was the aesthetics, and I didn't really care about like my connection with my body and how it moves and how it feels. So I was very glad for that conversation as well. But aside to that, what actually helped is probably something you're all really interested in. So look, we did a few things, and this is very personal to me, or specific and tailored to me. So I don't know if it would work for you if you're someone going through binge eating issues at the moment. But one would be skipping meals. I would fast, for example, or just not eat after binges. And it was like, hey, if I've binged, boom, I just reset. Next day is absolutely normal. I have breakfast, I have lunch, and I have dinner. And I listen to my body. And we would pair this with two things. So we would pair this with mindful eating. So I wouldn't be watching TV, I wouldn't be on my phone scrolling whilst I was eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But separate to that, I would be listening to my body at all times. If I felt like I was hungry, I would eat, but I would make good food choices, and I would be promoting whole food, nutrient dense options, but having time in there for flexible foods like treats, like craving foods. And at the start, that was really hard for me, because a big risk factor of my binges was me eating a chocolate bar, because I would almost spiral out of control, or just sweets in that matter. But what really helped me feel like I'm not just on a diet all the time was daily inclusions of treats, or weekly inclusions of treats. And that has led to me just continuously not feeling guilty whenever I'm out at restaurants or drinking beer, or having a few treats with some friends, for example. There was also the hunger rating. So it would be, hey, before a meal, how hungry was I? But also after a meal, how full was I? How hungry am I after this meal? And that really tells you, right, have I eaten enough? Am I actually satisfied? And all this stuff is making sure that we're setting our body up for success, so that we don't just have this late night binge, because for most people it's the evening, because they've under eaten throughout the day. What we would also do is use balanced meals via portion based eating. And this is something where we almost use our hand as our scale, right? And we're trying to include protein, fiber, carbs, and fat sources into our nutrition every day, and have that every single meal. And use your hand as that physical scale. So like a palm of protein would be that one serving, cupped worth of hands, a thumb of fat, and then a fist of veggies, and almost trying to have that balance across each three main meals, and then applying that to snacks where possible as well. So look, that was kind of the main kind of big things that I took away from my 5 sessions, and the big things that helped me. And where I am now is just a completely different spot. Like, I cannot believe just the lack of guilt I feel whenever I do indulge in treats, whenever I do maybe have a few beers. And I just feel like I live a normal functioning life now, where binge eating is not something that consumes me like it used to. And it's such a blue world. Like, my life now has never been better, and the last 6 months have been the best 6 months I've ever had, because I have entirely changed in this time, and I haven't been controlled by binge eating. And if you're someone watching this, my first point of advice is get support, and speak up about it. Like, the moment you get it off your chest, the better you're gonna feel. So just tell your closest friend, family member, person you trust, let them know, and also get support. So work with someone that's a specialist, because if you just tell someone that doesn't really know how to help you, it's very hard for you to get better. It definitely does help in terms of getting the feelings off your chest, but what I need you to also do is get some support. Very fortunately, in Victoria, in Australia over here, we have these free sessions, and that's dependent on your severity of symptoms. But you also have the ability to work privately with individuals as well, if that's something that's not possible for you. And the third thing is really just trust the process. When my counsellor told me to include chocolate bars in my day to day, or treats frequently, I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I know it's a risk factor to me, and maybe we didn't do it immediately. Like, maybe for the first few days after our session, I was like, I'm still not going to do it, and maybe I included it, and then I had it like once every few days, not every day. But if you don't kind of change and you work on what they're suggesting you, like, nothing will change. That famous saying, nothing changes if nothing changes. So yeah, almost you need to do the really hard bits, which they tell you to do. Unfortunately, it's as simple as that. So yeah, that is my decade-long experience with binge eating, where I am now, and I just cannot believe that I'm in a spot where I now actually have come clean of binge eating, and I actually now help individuals lose weight in a very healthy, sustainable and non-restrictive way as well. So it's been a complete blessing. I can't believe my life is where it is at now. I'm literally in a hotel in Adelaide, because I'm planning on talking about a nutrition workshop over the coming weeks. So it's phenomenal where this has taken me, and I'm just so blessed for that. And that's how I'm gonna end this. Anyway, if this has been useful, if it's been impactful, if you've stayed the total of these 22.5 minutes, I guess thank you. Maybe you didn't get too bored of me, and maybe this has been really helpful for you. So yeah, if it has, drop a comment down below. I don't know, you could say the word me or something like that. I don't know, just so I know. But yeah, if it has been helpful, don't feel scared to reach out to me, like, as well. Like, if you're a bit nervous of telling anyone or getting some specialist support, but maybe you feel more comfortable just messaging me, and just saying, hey George, like, your video really inspired me. Please, can you, I don't know, if you just want to get it off your chest to someone completely unrelated, and you don't want to have to pay for that as well, then you can just message me and just say, hey man, can we talk about binge eating for a second? So yeah, I'm not saying I help. Like, I'm not a binge eating counsellor, not at all, and I'm not going to give you any specialist support in that respect. But if you just want to get it off your chest to someone that's completely random, then you absolutely can. And my social medias are in my bio, so you can always find me there. So I'll finish this off now. This has been a good 25 minutes of me speaking, so you probably are bored of my voice by now. But yeah, if you did watch it this entire way, I really appreciate it, and I hope this was useful. Have a good day.